Hello, boys and girls. We're about ready to share a book together, but it's not a storybook this time. This time, we're going to be reading from something called an informational book. I know something we've done before, but we haven't shared this book together yet. This book is called My America and My World. What do you think we might be reading about from a book with this title? Are you looking at the pictures for more clues? Yes, you see that Statue of Liberty and that flag? You're right. We're going to be reading about the country we live in. And remember I told you it was an informational book? Do you think we're going to be reading just to be entertained and to hear things that make us imagine and dream? No. This time we're going to be reading facts. Now, it can be interesting to us, but the purpose isn't just to entertain, it's to teach us something. So today when we read, we're going to be reading about America's freedoms. A lot of times when we read an informational story, we like to kind of see why we're reading, what's our purpose, and that's going to help us understand. Well, when we read today, I want to see if you can help us find out 4 of the freedoms we have in our country. I've got here 4 eagles to remind me. Yep, the eagle's a symbol of our country, isn't it? Yes, it's a symbol of strength. Yep, and courage too, isn't it? Well, we're going to see if after reading this story, we can find 4 freedoms that we have in our country that make our country very, very special. All right, I'm going to start reading, and as I'm reading this, you ask yourself that question. All right, here we go. My America's freedoms. The Declaration of Independence told the world that a free country was born, the United States of America. I heard some cheers. Yeah, some of you are starting to hum a grand old flag, aren't you? This is a free country. But what does that mean? Am I free to do anything I want to do? No. If I were, I would be free to hurt other people. Well, I wouldn't want to do that. Then those people would not be free. This is a free country, not just for me, but for everyone. To keep my country free, we have laws to protect people. That's right. The rules protect us. They keep us safe, don't they? Do you remember the name of the law of the land? You do. I heard someone saying Constitution. The Constitution is the main set of laws for the United States. The Bill of Rights is a list of rights the American people have, such as the freedom of speech and the freedom of religion. Look at those different pictures there. This one on it says, we the people. We did talk about that, didn't we? This one shows, I believe, that is. There's Abraham Lincoln. That's the Lincoln Memorial. We'll talk a little more about that when we talk about symbols of our country. And there's a symbol we love. That's our flag. All right, let's read a little bit more about these freedoms. The freedom of worship. In America, I can go to any church that I choose to attend. Whenever I want to, I can pray. We can open the Bible or different books about religion and read them. In some countries, people cannot do these things. Sometimes their special books are taken away. Some people are punished just because they believe a certain way. In America, we do not need to be afraid to go to church or to a temple or a mosque or any other house of worship. We should not be afraid to pray or to read different books. This is a great American freedom, the freedom of worship. Okay. Are you making a note in your head? I think we found one of our freedoms. How about this? The freedom of speech. I can listen to people say what they think about my country. Sometimes I do not like what they say, but we are free to say what we want about our country. How glad I am to live in America. People in some countries are not free to say what they want to say. If they did, they could be put in jail. In America, I can talk to anyone, and anyone can talk to me about our country. We call this the freedom of speech. Doesn't that sound like speak? Speech, speak. Yep, the freedom to say things. Looks like the boys and girls in this picture are having a very nice conversation, doesn't it? It looks like they're being polite and respectful of each other. This is interesting. The freedom of the press. And look at the top of the page, it says newspapers and magazines. Do you know what a newspaper is? When I was a little girl, newspapers were around much, much more. This is a picture of a newspaper. Maybe some of your moms or dads read a newspaper on their phone. I know that's one of Mrs. Finkel's favorite things to do. I don't get a newspaper very often at my house anymore. It used to be you'd get one printed and you could get a subscription. I do get our community newspaper. But usually I read the newspaper right on my phone, and I have a couple different newspapers I like to look at. Let's find out more about the freedom of the press. My dad reads the newspaper every day. Sometimes he does not agree with what is written. Then he can write to the paper himself and tell people how he feels. Sometimes the newspaper will print his letter. There are people in some countries who have to agree with what is written in their newspaper. They would never try to write what they thought. They would be punished if they did. Aren't you glad that Americans have freedom of the press? Or freedom to write what they believe in the newspapers and magazines? We can share ideas with other people. They don't have to agree with us, and we don't have to agree with them, but we're still free to share our ideas, and we can write those ideas down. All right, here comes another. Are you getting a list in your mind? Yeah, there's a lot of them. Aren't we blessed to live in this country? We sure are. This one's called the freedom of assembly. Oh, boys and girls, remember how fun an assembly is? Remember what that was? Yeah, we would all go down to the gym and we'd see boys and girls from all the different classes, and we'd get together. Look at here, there's some grown-ups assembled. They're in a group together. Yep, and they're listening to someone speak. When you assemble, you get together in a group. In America, people can gather together anywhere they like. If there is a problem, people can gather together and talk about it. In school, we go to assemblies to see programs and to hear people talk and sing. In America, people can gather together whenever they want, as long as they do not cause trouble or try to hurt others. Being able to gather together is called the freedom of assembly. Oh, wow, that's really nice to know that we can get together with other people and talk about our ideas. Well, do you think we can go back and think about what we just read in this informational text or informational story? Let's see. Who can remember one of the freedoms we have as America, as Americans, a freedom we were given that no one's allowed to take away from us? Let's see, Daniel, do you have one? Yeah, the one we just talked about. That's a really fun one sometimes. The freedom of assembly. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write assembly. Let's see which way I should write that. Assembly. I see a tricky Y at the end of this word. It's a Y making an E sound. We can assemble together or get together. We can assemble together to celebrate. We can assemble together sometimes when we're sad, like if we want to get together at a funeral and remember someone we loved. We can assemble together at weddings. We can assemble together for parties. Sometimes we assemble together for very serious things, like to have big discussions. But in America, we're allowed to get together and talk about our ideas. All right, thanks, Daniel. That was a good one. All right, what other freedoms do we have? Priscilla? Yes, good. Freedom of the press. Yeah, that's kind of a funny word, isn't it? It's got a blend in the beginning. Then we've got the short E and it ends with this sound, press. Yep. Press is a word that we don't use a lot for our everyday talk in kindergarten. But a long time ago, they had something called the printing press, and they could make lots of newspapers to share with people on that press, and they could get out information. We still have newspapers, you're right, and we can use different things. Like we can use social media to talk to other people. We can listen to newscasters on the television or listen to radio broadcasters. But we're allowed to share our ideas and give our opinions of other people's ideas. All right, that's 2 of our important freedoms so far. What else do we know about? Oh, all right. Yes, Mason? You're right, that's a big word. The freedom of worship. Right, I'm going to write that down. All right, and that means we have the freedom to believe what religion we believe, and we can practice that religion too. If we practice it, it means we can do the things that are part of that religion. Some of us go to the same kind of churches. Some of us go to different kinds of churches. Some people might go to a temple to worship. Some people might go to a mosque. In America, that's okay. Some people choose not to worship in America. And that's allowed too. It's up to each individual what they believe and how they're going to practice that. All right, very good. I'm so glad I live in a country where I have that freedom. I don't think I'd want to be in a country. No, I know I would not want to be in a country where I could not do that. All right, we're going to do one more. Yep. All right, tell me about it, buddy. The freedom of speech. Now, this is tricky because have any of you ever been told, nope, it's not a talk time. You're not allowed to speak right now. Right. Sometimes it's rude to just shout something out, or there's times to talk and not times to talk, depending on where we are. But freedom of speech means that you're allowed to share your ideas. They can be popular ideas that people like. They can be ideas that not many people like at all. But you're still allowed to talk about it in our country. You can talk it over. You can tell people why you agree with them or why you don't agree with them. Or you can say, I wish you didn't say that. Or I wish you thought something else. But in our country, we're allowed to talk about things without being afraid of being put in jail. Even if we don't like what our leaders say, we can tell them that. We can write them letters. We can get together with other groups of people and share ideas. The freedom of speech is a very important one. Well, boys and girls, today we read an informational text or an informational piece of writing. And we found out that in America, we have very, very special freedoms. We talked about the freedom of worship, the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, and the freedom of assembly. And by thinking about our purpose for reading, it helped us remember and find the answers we wanted to. All right, boys and girls, I hope you remember how special those freedoms are and that we always stay thankful to live in a country where we have those freedoms. Nice job.